Dr. Emily Parker hadn't slept in 36 hours, but the sequence of numbers flooding her monitor made her feel more awake than any amount of coffee ever could. Her colleagues at MIT's Quantum Research Center had dismissed the pattern as background radiation noise, but Emily knew better. She'd stake her career on it. "Look at this," she muttered, fingers flying across her keyboard. "It's not random. It can't be random." The Fibonacci sequence repeated in the signal, but with subtle variations that couldn't be natural. Each iteration carried embedded harmonics that reminded her of music, if music could be played in quantum frequencies. Her phone buzzed. Another NASA alert. The 12 crystalline ships had maintained their position just beyond lunar orbit for the past 18 hours, ignoring all attempts at communication. Social media was having a field day with conspiracy theories, and the military's presence outside the research center had doubled in the last hour. Emily took another sip of her cold coffee and grimaced. "Come on, show me what you're trying to say." That's when she saw it. The pattern wasn't just mathematics. It was crying in numbers. The variations weren't errors. They were emotional fluctuations, quantum tears encoded in mathematical principles. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone to call NASA. "This is Dr. Parker. Get me Director Henderson. Now." She swallowed hard. "Tell him I know why they're here. And tell him to bring tissues." 6 hours later, Emily stood in NASA's main communications center, surrounded by military brass and government officials. Her presentation had silenced the room. "They're refugees," she repeated, pointing to the decoded patterns. The harmonics in their transmission match human brainwave patterns during extreme distress. "They're not here to invade. They're running from something." "Or they want us to think that," General Matthews growled. "It could be a trap." Emily shook her head. "With respect, General, if they wanted to attack, why announce themselves? Why transmit their pain in a language of pure mathematics?" She brought up the next slide. "And why would they position themselves in a way that makes their ships completely vulnerable to our lunar defense systems?" The room erupted in murmurs. Director Henderson raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Parker, you're suggesting we attempt communication." "I'm suggesting I attempt communication," Emily said, straightening her spine. "I've decoded their mathematical language. I can speak to them." The debate raged for another hour, but in the end, Emily's logic prevailed. As she sat in the communication chamber, surrounded by equipment and armed guards, she broadcast her first message, a Fibonacci sequence modified with the harmonic patterns she detected in their cry for help. The response was immediate. The largest crystalline ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, its surface refracting sunlight in patterns that matched her transmission. As it landed at the designated site in the Nevada desert, Emily's heart pounded against her ribs. The being that emerged shimmered like a diamond given form and consciousness. Its translucent body contained swirling patterns of light that pulsed in rhythm with Emily's modified Fibonacci sequence. When it spoke, its voice resonated at multiple frequencies simultaneously, creating a haunting chorus of mathematics and emotion. "We are the meridians," it said, its words translated through Emily's algorithm. "We carry within us the memories of 1,000 generations. We carry their pain, their hope, and their fear of extinction." The lights within its crystalline form darkened. "We have searched for so long, studied so many worlds. Yours was the only one whose history showed mercy to the desperate, even at great cost to yourselves." Emily stepped forward, despite the soldiers' protests. "You're safe now," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "Welcome to Earth." The Meridian's form brightened, and Emily gasped as she saw, deep within its crystalline structure, the recorded memories of its people's suffering and their desperate journey to find humanity. They had come seeking mercy. They had found hope. The Arizona desert sunset painted the crystalline structures of the Meridian settlement in hues of amber and rose. Emily watched as Meridian children, their forms smaller and more luminescent than the adults, played with local kids, their laughter a symphony of human sounds and mathematical harmonics. 3 weeks had transformed this patch of desert into something magical. The Meridian's natural ability to grow crystal structures had created dwellings that seemed to grow from the earth itself, their surfaces constantly shifting to maintain optimal internal temperatures. It was beautiful, peaceful, and about to shatter completely. The first sign was the static. Every screen on Earth flickered simultaneously, from smartphones to billboards. Emily's stomach dropped as the transmission cut through all frequencies, its signature unmistakable. The Kraxon appeared on every display. A massive, armoured being with iridescent scales and multiple eye ridges. Its voice boomed in every human language simultaneously. People of Earth, you harbour criminals and fugitives. The Meridian filth you've taken in are property of the Kraxon Empire. Return them within 1 planetary rotation or face extinction. The creature's mouth split in what might have been a smile. We are being generous. Their weakness has infected you with sentiment. Correct this error or share their fate. Emily was already running toward the settlement's centre when her phone rang. It was Director Henderson. Get to the UN meeting. Now, they're having an emergency session, and they need to hear from you. 2 hours later, Emily stood before the Security Council, her hands shaking, but her voice steady. She'd brought someone with her, a young Meridian she'd named Crystal, though their true name was a complex mathematical formula. Distinguished representatives, Emily began, I'm not here to show you statistics or strategic assessments. I'm here to show you the truth. She nodded to Crystal, who stepped forward and began to glow. The chamber gasped as Crystal projected their memories into the air, not just their own, but those inherited from generations past. They watched Kraxon soldiers shatter Meridian elders for entertainment. They saw Meridian children forced to process data until their crystalline forms cracked from strain. They witnessed centuries of systematic torture, all because the Kraxon saw the Meridians' peaceful nature as an affront to their empire. The Kraxon call them weak, Emily said into the stunned silence. They call us weak for sheltering them. But I ask you, what is true weakness? Is it showing compassion? Or is it destroying those who cannot or will not fight back? The chamber erupted in debate. Nations argued about military readiness, about the risk of extinction. Then Crystal stepped forward again, their form dimming to almost transparency. We will leave, they harmonized in their musical voice. We cannot ask your species to die for us. We have caused enough pain in the universe. Emily watched as Crystal turned to go, their form already beginning to dissolve in preparation for departure. Then Ambassador Chen from China stood up. Wait, she said. Dr. Parker is right. Today we decide not just the fate of the Meridians, but who we are as a species. She looked around the chamber. My grandparents once found shelter in a village that risked everything to hide them from invaders. That village was later burned, but its act of courage inspired a resistance that changed history. She straightened her spine. I vote we shelter them. Let the Kraxon come. The vote was unanimous. As Emily and Crystal left the UN, they found Times Square packed with humans holding signs. Earth, Sanctuary Planet, and Come Get Some, Kraxon. But it was the children who stopped Emily in her tracks. Hundreds of them had formed a circle around a crying Meridian child, their hands linked in protection. Emily's phone buzzed. NASA tracking had detected Kraxon ships entering the solar system. But as she watched those children, human and Meridian together, she felt no fear. Let them come. They would learn what the Meridians already knew, that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons or walls, but in its stubborn, relentless, magnificent heart. The lab hummed with anticipation as Emily adjusted the neural interface on Marine Lieutenant Jake Henderson's temples. Through the observation window, generals and scientists watched with barely contained excitement. This was attempt number 47 to establish a direct human-Meridian neural connection, and Emily refused to fail again. "Remember," she said to Jake, "don't try to think in words. The Meridians process information in mathematical patterns. Just feel the numbers." Jake nodded, his military composure betraying only slight nervousness as Crystal approached. The young Meridian's form pulsed with soft blue light, a sign of their own anxiety. "Ready?" Emily asked them both. At their nods, she initiated the connection. Jake's body tensed, his hands gripping the chair arms. Crystal's surface began to ripple with complex patterns. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Jake screamed. Emily lunged for the shutdown switch, but Jake's hand shot out to stop her. Tears streamed down his face, but his eyes were wide with wonder. "Don't," he gasped. "I can see everything." Through Crystal's translucent form, Emily watched colours dance in response to Jake's emotions. The Meridian was experiencing something new too, their usual mathematical patterns shifting into chaotic, beautiful swirls. "They're not memories," Jake whispered. "They're lives, complete lives. I can feel what their ancestors felt when the Kraxon first came. The terror, the hope, his voice broke. Their children, they hid their children in crystalline caves, singing mathematical lullabies to keep them quiet while the Kraxon hunted them." Crystal's form brightened suddenly. "And we feel your disorder," they harmonized. "Your thoughts, they do not follow logical progression. They leap, they dance, they..." Crystal paused, searching for words. "They dream." The connection lasted 6 minutes before safety protocols required shutdown. Jake slumped in his chair, exhausted but grinning. "Doc," he said, "you have no idea what you've discovered here." That night, Emily stayed late in the lab, reviewing the data. The neural patterns were unlike anything in medical literature, human creativity interweaving with Meridian quantum processing. She barely noticed when her eyes began to close. The dream started normally enough. She was back in her childhood home, chasing fireflies in the summer dusk. But something was different. The fireflies moved in Fibonacci patterns, and the air hummed with mathematical harmony. She awoke to alarms blaring. Crystal stood over her, their form blazing with unprecedented patterns. "Emily," they harmonized urgently. "You were generating quantum frequencies in your sleep. Your dream. It broadcasted through our crystalline network. Every Meridian on Earth felt it." Emily's mind raced with implications. "You mean?" "We have never dreamed before," Crystal said. "Our species processes, calculates, remembers. But we do not create impossible things in our minds while unconscious. Until now." The discovery sparked a revolution in both human and Meridian society. Meridian artists began incorporating human dream patterns into their crystalline structures, creating works that sang to both mathematics and emotion. Human musicians collaborated with Meridian harmonics experts, producing symphonies that could be felt at the quantum level. But it was the military applications that truly changed everything. Emily watched as Jake, now leading the Neural Integration Program, demonstrated the capabilities to Joint Chiefs. His fighter jet, retrofitted with Meridian crystal tech, performed maneuvers that should have been impossible, guided by the perfect fusion of human instinct and Meridian computational power. The Kraxan think in straight lines, Jake explained afterward. Their tactics are perfect, logical, predictable. But now, he grinned, now we can dream in quantum. That evening, as Emily walked through the settlement, she saw human and Meridian children sitting in circles, teaching each other to share dreams. The air sparkled with mathematical songs, and crystalline structures pulsed with human emotions. Crystal approached her, their form shifting with new patterns they'd learned from human dreamers. We thought we came here seeking mercy, they harmonized softly. We did not know we would find transformation instead. Emily smiled, watching a human child draw patterns in the sand, while her Meridian friend converted them into glowing crystal formations. Maybe, she said, they're the same thing. Above them, the first human Meridian hybrid fighters patrolled the night sky, their crystalline hulls dreaming of impossible victories to come. The Arizona monsoon came early that year, turning the evening sky into a roiling mass of purple-black clouds. Emily stood at the settlement's defensive command center, watching dust devils dance across the desert floor. Something about the storm felt wrong. There, crystal harmonized beside her, their form flickering with warning patterns. The dust formations, they're moving against the wind. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized what she was seeing. It's not dust, she whispered, already reaching for the alarm. It's cloaked ships. Jake, they're here. The settlement's warning system wailed to life as the first Kraxan strike force materialized from the storm. Their ships were organic-looking things, all sharp angles and predatory grace, designed to inspire terror. They struck with surgical precision, their energy weapons cutting through the outer crystal structures of the settlement. But Earth was ready. Phoenix Squadron, you are cleared to engage. Jake's voice crackled through the command center's speakers. Remember your training. Feel, don't think. Dream the impossible. Emily watched as 12 fighters rose from hidden underground hangars, their hulls gleaming with integrated Meridian crystal tech. Each pilot was neurolinked to both their ship and a Meridian navigator, creating a three-way consciousness that defied conventional physics. The first Kraxan ship fired a plasma burst at Jake's fighter. In any normal aircraft, it would have been a killing shot. Instead, Jake's ship dreamed. There was no other word for it. The crystal-enhanced hull shifted reality around itself, appearing to be in 3 places at once before materializing behind the Kraxan vessel. That's impossible. The Kraxan commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. Your technology cannot. We're not using technology, Jake replied, as his squadron executed maneuvers that made Emily's eyes hurt to watch. We're using imagination. The battle transformed the storm into something mythical. Lightning mixed with plasma fire, thunder with explosion. Human fighters phased through solid matter, their Meridian crystals bending space-time according to their pilots' dreams. The Kraxans' logical, predictable attack patterns shattered against warfare they couldn't even comprehend. In the command center, Emily noticed something odd about the Kraxans' attack formation. Crystal, she called. Are you seeing this? The pattern in their flight paths. Crystal's form brightened with recognition. It's a nested sequence. Like our old emergency protocols. But they paused. Emily, it's a message. Working together, they decoded it as the battle raged outside. The message was brief but clear. Not all Craxan believe. Young ones watch Earth. Young ones question. Keep showing us another way. Emily's hands trembled as she saved the decode. They're losing control of their own people, she whispered. The younger generation is watching us protect the Meridians, and it's making them question everything. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. The remaining Craxan ships retreated into the storm, leaving behind a changed battlefield. The settlement's crystal structures had already begun regenerating, glowing with defiant light against the darkness. Jake landed his fighter and practically ran to the command center, his neural link interface still glowing at his temples. "Did you see that?" he asked, grinning despite his exhaustion. The crystal tech didn't just enhance our capabilities, it let us rewrite the rules of what's possible. The Craxan couldn't adapt because they couldn't even understand what they were seeing. Emily showed him the decoded message. His expression sobered. "So we're not just fighting their ships," he said. "We're fighting their entire worldview." The Craxan Empire is built on the idea that strength means domination, crystal harmonized. By showing mercy to us, by fighting to protect rather than destroy, you have introduced an impossible variable into their equation. Outside, the storm was passing. The setting sun broke through the clouds, turning the crystalline buildings into towers of fire. Human and Meridian children emerged from the shelters, their forms casting mathematical shadows across the battle-scarred ground. "Let them come back," Jake said, watching the children play. "We'll show them what else is impossible." Emily smiled, thinking of the message from the Craxan youth. Perhaps the greatest victory wouldn't come from winning battles, but from showing an entire empire that there was strength in mercy, power in protection, and infinite possibility in daring to dream. Emily's niece, Katie, sat cross-legged in the crystal garden, her small hands intertwined with the luminescent form of Lyra, a Meridian child whose name translated to Song of Stars in human mathematics. The two 8-year-olds had become inseparable since Katie's parents moved to the settlement 3 weeks ago. "Aunt Emily," Katie called out, her excitement palpable. "Watch what we can do." Emily approached, notepad ready. Katie and Lyra's games had already led to 2 breakthrough discoveries in human Meridian neural synchronization. But what she saw today stopped her in her tracks. Katie and Lyra had their eyes closed, but the crystals around them were projecting their shared dreamscape into the air. A mathematical garden of impossible flowers bloomed above them, each petal a flowing equation, each stem a theorem made beautiful. "We're dream friends," Katie explained matter-of-factly. "When we sleep at the same time, we can play in the numbers together." Before Emily could process this revelation, her secure tablet buzzed. A message from the underground resistance within the Craxan Empire. Young ones watching Earth broadcasts. Seeds of doubt growing. Empire scrambling to contain spread of human Meridian imagery. Caution advised. They will strike at the source. Emily's blood ran cold. She was the source. Her research, her breakthroughs, her public interviews about human Meridian cooperation. "Katie, sweetie, why don't you and Lyra go inside?" But before the words were fully out of her mouth, Lyra's form flashed with warning patterns. "Danger!" The Meridian child chimed in harmonic distress. Katie saw it in our dream. Emily dove forward just as the assassin's plasma bolts seared the air where she'd been standing. The Craxan operative decloaked on a nearby ridge, already adjusting aim for a second shot. But Katie and Lyra hadn't moved apart. Instead, their shared dream state deepened, and the crystal garden responded. Mathematical equations became defensive formations, theorem flowers hardened into shields. The assassin's second shot dissipated against a wall of crystallized children's dreams. Security forces led by Jake arrived seconds later, surrounding the assassin. The Kraxan warrior, surprisingly young, lowered their weapon and spoke directly to Emily. "Your infection spreads," they said, their translator making the words sound like a confession. "The young ones dream now. They ask questions. They wonder why we cannot create beauty like this." They gestured to the crystal garden, still shimmering with Katie and Lyra's shared imagination. The Empire cannot survive wonder. Later, in her lab, Emily reviewed neural scans from Katie and Lyra's shared dream state. Other species were beginning to make contact, secretly offering support to Earth. A Gelonian scientist had smuggled in quantum computing cores that interfaced seamlessly with meridian crystal matrices. An Axiom philosopher had provided ancient texts about other species who had resisted Kraxan dominance. The children are the key, Crystal harmonized, examining the scans. Their minds are not yet bound by what is possible. When they dream together, they create new forms of mathematics, new ways of thinking that even we Meridians never imagined. Emily watched through her lab window as more human and Meridian children gathered in the crystal garden. Their shared dreams were becoming more complex, more powerful. Some military officials wanted to weaponize this capability, but Emily saw a different potential. "They're not creating weapons," she said softly. "They're creating hope. Every shared dream, every impossible flower, every mathematical song, it all proves that cooperation is stronger than conquest." The secure tablet buzzed again. More resistance messages, this time with data. Young Kraxan across the Empire were refusing military service, asking questions about strength and mercy, sharing forbidden images of human children protecting Meridian refugees. "The Empire calls it a virus," Crystal observed, their form shifting with complex emotions. Perhaps they are right. Hope is contagious. That night, as Emily worked late in her lab, she heard singing from the crystal garden. Human children were teaching Meridian children old lullabies, while the Meridians translated them into mathematical harmonies. The resulting symphony rose into the star-filled desert sky, a beacon of defiance and wonder. Let the Kraxan come, Emily thought. They would find that peace had sharper teeth than war, and that dreams could strike deeper than any weapon. Katie's crayon drawings covered Emily's lab walls, a riot of colour and impossible shapes that shouldn't have made sense. But as Emily stared at them through sleepless eyes, patterns emerged that defied conventional science. "Look at this one," she said to Jake, pointing to a particular drawing. It showed what looked like a person made of light stepping through a crystal, emerging as multiple streams of conscious energy. She drew this after sharing dreams with Lyra last week. "I thought it was just childhood imagination, but..." Jake leaned closer, his neural interface glowing softly at his temples. "The patterns, they're similar to the quantum signatures we see during human meridian synchronization, but more complex. Almost like a blueprint, crystal harmonized, their form shifting with excitement. The child has drawn a theoretical framework for consciousness expansion that our greatest minds never conceived." Emily's hands trembled as she pulled up her latest research data. Katie and Lyra aren't just sharing dreams anymore. They're accidentally inventing new forms of existence. Look at these neural patterns. Human creativity isn't just interfacing with meridian quantum processing, it's completely merging with it. The lab's emergency alert system suddenly blared to life. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Kraxan fleet assembling at the edge of the solar system. They had days, maybe hours. "We need to test it now," Jake said, his voice firm. "Use me." Emily protested, but Jake cut her off. The Kraxen are coming with everything they have. We're out of time for caution. If there's even a chance, this could work. The procedure room hummed with nervous energy as Emily calibrated the equipment. They'd adapted Katie's crayon blueprints into a working theory, using Crystal's quantum expertise to translate childhood imagination into scientific reality. Remember, Emily said, checking Jake's neural connections one last time, this isn't like our previous synchronizations. If it works, your consciousness will exist across multiple crystalline matrices simultaneously. The processing power will be unprecedented. Jake managed a tight smile. Just promise to pull me back if I start speaking in mathematical equations. Crystal moved into position, their form surrounded by smaller crystalline structures that Katie and Lyra had grown specifically for this purpose. Each crystal had been dreamed into existence, shaped by the combined imagination of human and Meridian children. Emily initiated the sequence. Jake's body went rigid as golden light poured from his neural interface, connecting with Crystal's form in a web of quantum energy. The smaller crystals began to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. For 3 terrifying minutes, nothing happened. Then Jake opened his eyes, all of them. His consciousness now existed in every crystal in the room, each one showing his iris pattern in ghostly light. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "Oh," he whispered in harmonized wonder. Oh, this is what they were afraid of. Emily's instruments were going crazy. "Jake, are you? How do you feel?" "I feel infinite," he replied, his voice rippling through mathematical frequencies. "I can see everything, every possible future, every potential outcome. The Kraxen's invasion plans, their strategies, their fears." He paused, his many eyes blinking in synchronization. "And I know how to show them what they've forgotten." Through the crystal network, Jake shared what he was experiencing. Emily gasped as she saw time and space spread out like an endless mathematical tapestry. The Kraxen's logical, linear strategies looked painfully limited against the infinite possibilities that human imagination and Meridian quantum processing could now access. "This is why they hate dreams," Jake said softly. "Dreams don't follow rules. Dreams don't bow to empire. Dreams..." He smiled through a dozen crystalline faces. "Dreams make the impossible inevitable." Katie and Lyra peeked into the lab, their eyes wide with recognition. "See," Katie said proudly, "just like we drew it." As emergency alerts continued to warn of the approaching Kraxen fleet, Emily looked at her niece's drawings with new understanding. The children hadn't just been playing, they'd been showing them the future. A future where humanity's greatest gift wasn't its technology or its weapons, but its unlimited capacity to imagine new ways of existing. And now, thanks to a child's crayon dreams, they had the power to make the Kraxen see it too. The Kraxen invasion fleet darkened Earth's skies like a swarm of metallic locusts. Their ships, bristling with weapons that could crack planets, moved in perfect geometric formations, a testament to their unwavering belief in power through absolute order. In the Crystal Garden, now transformed into Earth's most unusual command center, Jake's consciousness flickered across hundreds of crystals. His many eyes tracked multiple realities simultaneously, calculating possibilities faster than any computer ever built. "They're deploying exactly as I saw," he said, his harmonized voice resonant with certainty. "Their tactical programming hasn't changed in centuries. They literally can't imagine we try something this irrational." Emily watched as Katie and Lyra led a circle of human and Meridian children in what looked like a simple game of hand-holding and singing. But the mathematical harmonies they generated were being channeled into something unprecedented. "Broadcasting network ready," Crystal announced, their form pulsing with nervous energy. "The children's dream link will carry Jake's transmission through the quantum substrate of reality itself. The Kraxan won't be able to block it." The first wave of Kraxan ships entered the atmosphere. Their initial barrage of plasma fire was meant to shatter Earth's defenses in seconds. Instead, it met a barrier of crystallized dreams, geometric patterns that the children had imagined into existence. The energy dispersed in brilliant fractals of light. "Now," Emily commanded. Jake's consciousness expanded across the crystal network and, amplified by the children's dream harmonies, reached out. Through their neural interfaces, every Kraxan soldier suddenly found themselves experiencing something alien to their species, pure, unfiltered human emotion, wrapped in Meridian quantum mathematics. They felt the terror of Meridian children hiding from hunter-killer squads. They experienced the fierce protective love of human parents defending refugee families. They saw through the eyes of Katie and Lyra, experiencing the pure joy of friendship that transcended species. But most devastatingly, they felt hope. The youngest Kraxan pilots broke formation first. Their ships wavered, weapons powering down as their pilots processed centuries of enforced cruelty through the lens of human empathy. The disruption spread like ripples in a quantum pond. "The neural cascade is working," Jake reported, his crystalline eyes tracking the chaos in the enemy fleet. "The younger ones they're awakening. But the old guard is." A massive energy blast from the Kraxan flagship cut through the sky, aimed directly at the Crystal Garden. Before Emily could scream a warning, Katie and Lyra's dream circle flared with impossible light. The children's shared imagination, translated through Meridian quantum mechanics, didn't just stop the blast. It transformed it into a shower of mathematical butterflies. "You see," Jake's voice boomed across all frequencies, reaching every Kraxan ship. "This is what you've forgotten. Power isn't about destruction. True strength isn't measured in conquest. Look at these children, these weak species you despise. They just turned your deadliest weapon into art." The Kraxan fleet hung in disarray as more young soldiers deserted, their ships breaking ranks to form protective circles around Earth. The old guard commanders raged orders that went unheeded. Emily watched in awe as Katie approached the command crystal, where Jake's primary consciousness resided. "You have to show them the best dream," she said simply. "The one where everyone gets to go home." Jake's many eyes softened. Through the quantum network, he broadcast one final vision. A future where the Kraxan Empire transformed its martial might into protection for the weak, where their precision and order was used to build rather than destroy, where their children could dream without fear. The Kraxan flagship's weapons powered down. In the tense silence that followed, a small Meridian crystal floated up from the garden. It had been grown by the children during their dream sessions, and now it pulsed with a simple message in the Kraxan language. "Mercy isn't weakness. It's the courage to imagine a better way." As dawn broke over the Arizona desert, Earth's sky was filled with crystalline rainbows, the quantum aftermath of a battle won not with weapons, but with dreams. 10 years later, Emily stood in the transformed Arizona desert, watching the sunset paint the crystalline metropolis in sheets of gold and rose. The city had become known as Harmony's Edge, where the mathematical precision of Meridian architecture merged with the organic chaos of human design. Crystal spires twisted into impossible shapes, their surfaces alive with shared dreams and quantum equations. Aunt Emily, Katie's voice, now belonging to a confident 18-year-old, called from behind her. "The initialization sequence is ready." Emily turned to see her niece standing beside Lyra, their childhood friendship having blossomed into a pioneering scientific partnership. The Meridian's form had matured into a complex crystalline structure that pulsed with both mathematical precision and artistic flair, a living testament to their shared evolution. The Craxon observers have arrived, Jake announced, his consciousness flowing through the nearby crystal matrix. After a decade, he had learned to exist simultaneously as both a human form and a quantum presence, a bridge between realities. The observation platform filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Young Craxon officers, their once rigid military bearing now softened with curiosity, stood alongside representatives from dozens of species who had emerged from hiding after the Empire's transformation. 10 years ago, Emily addressed the gathering. A group of refugees arrived here seeking mercy. Today, we launch humanity's first quantum consciousness ship, designed by human dreamers and Meridian architects, protected by reformed Craxon defense systems. The vessel rose from its crystalline berth, its hull shimmering with possibilities. Unlike traditional spaceships, it existed partially in quantum space, its form shaped by the dreams of its crew. Katie and Lyra would lead the first expedition, exploring not just physical space, but the quantum realms of consciousness itself. The children who once shared dreams in a garden, Emily continued, showed us that the universe is far stranger and more beautiful than we imagined. They taught us that strength isn't about domination, it's about having the courage to imagine something better. Crystal approached, their form carrying the complex harmonies of both celebration and nostalgia. When we first arrived, they harmonized. We thought Earth was our last hope for survival. We did not know it would become the first hope for a new way of existing. The gathered species watched in awe as Katie and Lyra initiated the ship's consciousness matrix. The vessel's crystalline surface rippled with mathematical songs as crew members, human, Meridian, and yes, even young Craxon, established their neural links. Ready for quantum jump, Katie announced, her neural interface glowing with the same patterns that had once appeared in her childhood drawings. Lyra's form pulsed in synchronized excitement. Emily felt tears in her eyes as she gave the launch command. The ship didn't simply take off. It dreamed itself into quantum space, its wake leaving trails of crystallized mathematics that would guide future explorers. A young Craxon officer approached Emily, their once fearsome combat armor now decorated with flowing equations. "My youngest clutchmates," they said softly. "They dream now, every night. The Creshminders say it's changing our species' neural patterns. We are becoming more." "That's what dreams do," Emily replied. "They show us what we can become." As the quantum ship vanished into possibilities, Emily remembered that first night when she decoded the Meridian's cry for help. They had come seeking sanctuary, but they had found something far more precious. Proof that the universe's greatest power wasn't in weapons or empires, but in the simple courage to show mercy to strangers. The Arizona sunset painted the crystalline city in impossible colors as children of a dozen species played in the quantum gardens. Their dreams, more powerful than any weapon, continued to reshape reality itself. Above them, Katie and Lyra's ship ventured into unknown space, carrying humanity's greatest gift to the stars, the ability to imagine a better way. And in the quantum matrices that connected them all, Jake's consciousness whispered an ancient truth that had taken an entire galaxy to understand. Sometimes the weakest hands are the ones that transform the universe. They had all been transformed, not by power or fear, but by the simple, magnificent act of daring to dream together.